New York City's newly approved pied-à-terre tax is going to increase costs for many luxury homeowners with second homes valued above $1 million. Joining us now, Noble Black, real estate broker at the Corcoran Group. So let's talk about the impact. Are you seeing an impact already? What do you think is about to happen here?
Well, that's anybody's guess. We are seeing an impact. So we're certainly seeing some people pull back. It's not across the board. It's not everybody. But we've definitely had some buyers that have paused transactions. We've had buyers that were looking and decided to kind of put pause and kind of make them back, but they may not. We've had a couple of people reach out that wanted to put their apartment on the market for sale. So
by the way, there seems to be a little bit of confusion. Maybe you can just help us with the actual details of how this works. So when this was first announced, they were talking about a pied-à-terre with a value of over $5 million. Now, it sounds like we're also talking about homes in certain cases that are over $1 million.
So it's very confusing.
Exactly.
Originally, when they floated it, it was over $5 million.
Yes.
They were going to use the assessed market value by the New York City Department of Finance.
Right.
That's vastly different from what the actual market value is. So when they did $5 million, they realized that I think there were 3 properties in the city that had an assessed value above $5 million. Mm-hmm. So they scrapped that. Now it's going to be for the first 2 years until July of 28. It's on properties that have an assessed market value of over $1 million.
Of over $1 million. Okay. But typically, just so we're clear, properties that are, quote unquote, assessed at $1 million are, in truth, valued at what?
8 to 10 or 11. So we pulled
8 to 10 or 11. So we're way over the 5.
Way over the 5.
Okay.
So the odds are that if you have something for 5 or 6 million, you're not going to get picked up in this first 2 years.
Okay.
So it's 4 to 6.5%.
You say not picked up, meaning you're never going to pay for the rest of your life, or you're not going to pay for the next 2 years?
For the next 2 years.
Okay.
And then starting in 2 years, July 28, it's going to switch, and it's going to go to a true market value. They haven't said how they're going to determine that, probably based on sales price.
Okay.
But it's going to be a true market value, and then the rate is going to drop to 0.8 to 1.3%. But again, on a much bigger number.
And the type of people that are making these decisions, when I say type, is it people who are living in Florida, for example, who are thinking, I want to commute and keep an apartment in New York and now instead may be able to stay at a hotel? Yeah. Or is it the family in Connecticut or Westchester or Long Island or New Jersey or Pennsylvania that typically had this sort of pied-à-terre that they were sort of commuting into?
It's all of that, right?
Okay.
So it's picking up everything. What's getting press is everyone saying, oh, we need to tax the wealthy, the people that are fleeing to Florida. But you're picking up all of those people. So a lot of my best clients are people that were never New York City residents. They live in California. They may live abroad. They live in Texas. But they have a place here. And it may be something they use for 4 or 6 weeks a year. It may be something they use for, 4 months. But they're coming here. They're spending dollars. They're still paying property taxes and mansion taxes and transfer taxes, but all of that's getting swept up.
International too. I mean, I guess that it's
unless so the way that they have, as of the latest that they've published, unless you can prove that the occupant is a New York City tax-paying resident, then the tax is going to be assessed on it. So you can also rent to someone, but the tenant must be a New York City tax-paying resident.
I guess you may not get a whole lot of tears for people who, this is your second home, your third home, your fourth home, whatever it may be. I guess the bigger question is what it does to the overall real estate market in New York if you take out that incremental buyer.
I think it's what it does to the market, and then more broadly, what's it do to the city, right? And I think you're right. No one has sympathy for this, and people are saying, oh, they can afford it. Of course they can afford it, but many of them will choose not to afford it. It's going to end up being basically 1%.
Maybe that's the goal, is to get prices down in the city, but what does that do to people who have already bought in at the level?
Well, they're going to lose value, but also for all of us, for the city in general, the values are going to go down, so the taxes are going to go down.
So structurally, the argument that the mayor would make, I think, is that his hope is that these homes that you were about to sell to somebody in Florida, either they're going to pay the tax, would bring in revenue to the city, or a family that might not have gotten into that home is somehow going to get into that home. And the question is that even a possible, in terms of thinking through the mechanics of how that works in the ecosystem you live in, is the family that was going to live in that home now going to be able to get into that home because maybe even that home is marginally cheaper. Again, we're now in a much more, we're in a high bracket to begin with.
So we're looking at properties that are priced above $5 million, right? So I don't think that making those somewhat more affordable, and there's, I think, roughly between 10 and 11,000 properties in the city that will qualify for this. the bulk of the revenue is going to come from about 300. So you're not talking about that many homes, right? You're talking about very expensive homes, very wealthy individuals.
So I heard from an interesting broker who competes with you who said something very interesting to me, at least, which was that a lot of the pied-à-terres that are over 5 million are just from physically are not meant for necessarily families always. They're not 5 and 6, they're not like massive 5 and 6 bedroom apartments. Sometimes they're literally 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. Not to say that that's small, but the idea that somehow this family that otherwise was going to live in this big apartment, that they're not really built for that, because a pied-à-terre is a different conceit.
Look, I agree with part of that and disagree with part. I mean, I have pied-à-terres. I have people that have something that's 13,000 square feet that's a pied-à-terre, and then we just closed on something, to your point, 2 months ago that was 6.7 million, and it was a 2-bedroom. So yes, I mean, they can be. We're by definition talking about luxury. It's a question of what do they want. I mean, we've sold apartments that are 1-bedroom for over 10 million, but a lot of them are big family apartments. But the thing is, even if they become less expensive, if the value comes down by 20%, which I don't think it's going to, that's still not going to be something that solves the housing crisis. Right. We're not going to.
Why do you say that? So what do you think they're going to come down to? What do you think that the actual impact is going to be if you say it's not 20%?
I haven't seen anybody with any kind of reasonable estimate of that. And I think the question is going to be how many people choose to either not buy or how many people choose to sell. And that's just unknown right now. I think the vast majority of people will complain and suck it up and they'll stay. But again, you're talking about basically 300 people that this applies to, that the bulk of the revenue is coming from. I don't think you have to have that many people that choose to stay in a hotel or choose to not buy or choose to sell for that diminution in value to really start affecting values. And then it goes all the way down.